We started with 32, and now we're down to the final 4. How did we get there? We're going to talk all about that right now in the CWC Bracket Breakdown.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CWC After Show Bracket Breakdown on AFTERBUZZ TV. I am one of your hosts, the internet's Mark B. Donica, joined as always by the rest of our esteemed panel. He ain't got a collar, he got a V-neck. I don't give a crap. It's Ty Matthews.
You know, sometimes you gotta forsake the buttons for a nice V.
And sometimes you gotta spear Scorpio Sky like you're professional. You can't scare me like that again. I'm afraid I'm gonna make the wrong joke, and you're gonna spear me across the way.
You know what? I'm like Mark Henry. I don't have my salmon blazer, but I still got a lot left in the tank.
That's what you do. Mr. Bill Hanstock returning to the show. How you doing?
I'm a bunch of puppets.
Or at least you're not
I'm a Muppet Man situation going on.
But at least you're not like
Spoilers.
But you're not like 3 kids in a heavy overcoat.
Yeah. Now I can get into all the R-rated movies because everyone knows that it's not about how old you are, but how tall you are.
Right. Exactly.
Because if you're like, oh, did you check the guy's ID? No, did you see how tall he was?
That is clearly an adult human man.
Gentlemen, Twitters. Ty Matthews PMA.
Absolutely.
Sundown Motel. And Mark B. Donica. You can follow all of us at AfterBuzz TV. Let's get into it. We haven't been back since the end of round 1, which was a huge round. And to be fair, it's only been 5 weeks, so we're covering about the same amount of ground.
This went by way quicker than I was expecting.
Really
we are really moving through it.
Yeah. So let's, why don't we, actually, before we get to any of the matches,
Yes.
We talked about it at the end of the last show about the Cruiserweight division that's coming to Raw. We have since...
Next week,
after the...
A week from today.
Yes, after the final episode, the Cruiserweights are going to be headed to Raw, and we have...
They're going to be beheaded?
Yes, they're going to be beheaded on Raw.
Hobo a little bit there.
A little bit.
They're going to be beheaded.
That was good. So we have at least... we have several names of folks that are going to be a part of that roster. Don't know if that's going to grow. Don't know if any of these... There's 10. So far, we have Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Rich Swann, Noam Dar, Brian Kendrick, TJ Perkins, Grand Metalik, Jack Gallagher, and Akira Tozawa. Wow.
Pretty excited about this.
Amazing. Especially, Ty, you're on the Raw After Show.
I am.
I'm beyond jealous of you.
Oh,
that you get to, you quote unquote, have to watch these guys every week.
Are we doing a News of the Rumors segment on this?
We're going to at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Actually, I think we're gonna talk about maybe what you want to talk about when we get to the semifinal round, maybe. Sure. So already, we're gonna be making allusions to who's in, who's not for the entire show.
Who's hot, who's not? Cheers.
That's how we do. Yeah. But why don't we get into the first show, week 5, the first two matches of round 2. We had an amazing show. It was Tajiri versus Grand Metalik and Cedric Alexander versus Kota Ibushi. These 2 matches alone set the stage for what the entire tournament was.
Yeah. The match that stole the entire second round was Alexander versus Ibushi. Got the most hype of, I think, any match from the second round, with perhaps the exception of the Kendrick match.
Right. And it was coming so hot off the heels of Gargano and Ciampa.
Oh, wait, no, that was the third round. Kendrick versus Ibushi, right?
Was the third round, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it was coming so hot off the heels of Gargano and Ciampa, with a legitimate match of the year candidate, and came so close after it. I don't think anyone was expecting that much of a barn burner.
Yeah, I like that. Even though all these shows are just like a tournament and it's all just wrestling for wrestling's sake, that with so many of these guys, like there are a few guys like Brian Kendrick that have established stories that are a through line of the whole tournament, like Gargano and like Kendrick.
Yeah.
But everyone else who's advancing several rounds, they're growing as the rounds progress. So, like, for example, we saw the first part of this with the Grand Metalik match, where the first week we just had him doing some things that Daniel Bryan had never seen before.
Yes.
and this second round was sort of him being like, I have more that I can do, and I'm not just a moves guy, I'm also a guy that can be like a legitimate legend.
And this seemed to be the first match where they were hammering home that he's the king of the ropes. And we saw a lot more of his utilization of the ropes, going out to the middle of it for that huge elbow drop.
Absolutely.
I think he and Tajiri had an amazing match, and it's kind of a shame that it was on the same program as Cedric Alexander and
Yeah,
Kota
because
Ibushi.
I mean, like some weeks are like kind of clunker weeks. So like if that match had been on a different week that hadn't been the week that Alexander and Ibushi went, like more people would probably be talking about that.
Yeah. So I have to say, we went through it in our last episode too. Standout competitor on this show, it's Cedric Alexander.
Yeah.
It's got to be, yeah.
I didn't expect to hear any pushback. I'm like, whoa.
No.
Tajiri has such a story career. and the thing that I loved about Tajiri, though, not to put him down, was he completely changed what his style was in the first round.
Yeah, exactly.
And showed how much of a vet he is. And he was no slouch whatsoever. This was an amazing way to start out the second round.
And I knew that Tajiri and Metalik would, I talked about it when we covered round one, that it would be a throwback to the days of ECW, to the days of Tajiri and Super Crazy. And, you know, the three ways with Little Guido and with Mikey Whipwreck and things like that. So it was such a refreshing pace to see that. Obviously, it got a little overshadowed by such an incredible match between Alexander and Ibushi. But Alexander just showed so much kind of originality and creativity, and really, I think it brought out the best in him. Exactly.
Oh my God, the heart! Like everybody was like, "Cool, Kota Ibushi's gonna win," and then by the end of it, they're like, "Maybe we don't want him to win."
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we don't want him to win.
Maybe we're okay with him not. Yeah. And
especially for they've been saying the match of his career, which that is not a doubt. I think.
Sure.
And you also, this is also the first week where we got a coda after the outro. Like, what's coming up next week? We got the coda of Cedric Alexander trying to depart, and the crowd saying, you know,
please sign Cedric.
I love that.
I got to talk to him SummerSlam weekend, and he told me that he didn't know that was going to happen, and that he tried to go to the back, or he went to the back, and they sent him back out because people were going crazy for him, and he kept trying to go to the back, and he said 5 times the cameraman was like, come on, like you can't go to the back yet. So he was just like standing out there crying, and he was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know. And then he heard the crowd cheer, and he turned around, and Triple H was there, and he said he didn't know that was going to happen. He didn't expect it. So
right.
So if you haven't seen his post-match interview as well, please go check it out. Again,
like while we're talking about Cedric Alexander, and while this is the breakout match that we're talking about, we're not going to be talking about him again on this show.
Yes, we are.
Well, maybe, but.
Not in a tournament.
I said in the first episode, like, I don't think, and I've said it a few times at this point, but I've never seen anyone benefit so much from losing like 20 pounds.
This guy. He looks amazing.
Well, not just that he looks amazing, but like it's changed his whole style, it's changed his whole attitude, and it's absolutely turned his career around. And now he's just like, the sky's the limit for this guy. Not that he had like limited potential before, but he wrestled a different style. He was slower paced. He didn't have the same attitude, and just like kind of night and day.
Definitely imposing a strict weight limit is and being legitimate and straightforward with it is one of the best parts about this tournament. And I think going to what you were saying about the Kota and what you were saying about the post-match interview, we're in this era of sincerity and of earnestness, and people aren't afraid to be showing real emotion. And I think sometimes it can get overdone, but I think it's showing us a side of the business that I don't think people really got a chance to be exposed to before.
And also the CWC is proving that all that guff that was going around, all these hot takes that were flying around a few months ago, men cry too in wrestling. And before I forget to talk about it, gotta say, it's still upset that we got robbed of Zumbi.
Zumbi for life.
We gotta get
ride or die for Zumbi.
Zumbi bonus match.
We'll get it. Yeah. Hopefully he can come back next year if we get a second annual CWC. Before we get off of this show, before we get off of this episode, is anybody surprised that Tajiri is not on the list of competitors for the Cruiserweight division on Raw?
I guess I hadn't really thought about him joining the Cruiserweight division. I know my original pick was him moving forward in this tournament because I don't think I don't think I think I underestimated Grand Metalik, and I think
everyone did. Like, no one, he came out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
And there's definitely another competitor who came out of nowhere.
Sure. And I think yeah, I wasn't expecting him to go nearly this far in the tournament, but each and every video package that we see in each new round just shows us more and more, and shows us how that this guy could potentially go all the way. And so it makes perfect sense in retrospect. But yeah, I think if I had thought about it more, Tajiri, obviously being a former Cruiserweight champion, would have been a great addition to that roster. I would have loved to see him interacting with Jack Gallagher or with Akira Tozawa. I really thought we were going to see a Tajiri Tozawa match in this tournament.
And unfortunately, we did not. Let's move on to week 6. Speaking of Akira Tozawa, one of my absolute favorite matches of this round, just for sheer entertainment purposes, Akira Tozawa versus Jack Gallagher, Ho-Ho Lun versus Noam Dar, and Brian Kendrick versus Tony Nese. Gentlemen, favorite match of this episode? It's hard, because all of these were fantastic matches. Kendrick and Nese, like, Kendrick consistently changing his offense in every single match, and this was the ultimate underdog story for him. Getting the bully choke out of the 450 for the win was just like an instant, like, oh my god, he won! Like,
and I think,
amazing moment.
I think that might be what did it for me. I think that's what really pushed that match over, because I really thought for sure that Tony Nese would advance farther. I was telling Bill before we went live that I'm shocked Tony Nese is only now being exposed to this wide of an audience. Like, it's so hilariously, it's such a ridiculous understatement to say that he's the total package, because he's not only
premier athlete.
Exactly. It's so much not a gimmick. He not only has everything, seems like he's the best at everything. And so I really thought that it was a foregone conclusion.
And to that regard, he's made an appearance on NXT. He's been in the bonus match that we're going to talk about later in the show. So of all of the Cruiserweight Classic competitors, he's had the most post-tournament exposure.
I see.
I mean, albeit by one match.
Sure.
Still, they're keeping him around.
So yeah, as fun as Tozawa and Gallagher was, which was an absolute blast to watch, going to both ends of the spectrum, both to the comedy end and to the straight-up intensity end, I think, seeing this new style, seeing this kind of gritty, like, Kendrick as Kendrick's own father type style. Like, that's what it really struck me as when we first started seeing his video packages. Like, he looks like he traveled into the future and found his own father, who's like very scrappy and just kind of like way more aggressive now.
That's an interesting way to put it. Bill, what did you think about all of the matches this week?
As far as best match of the week, probably have to go with Kendrick and Nese, only because it's a real bummer that the first 2 rounds of Tozawa, the crowd didn't really get him. It seemed like the Full Sail crowd never really got Tozawa until his final match, which is a bummer, but at least they got there eventually. Tozawa Gallagher, I mean, I love Gallagher, he's amazing, but just because the crowd was so much more into Kendrick and Nese, and it was a clear story that they were telling, again with this Kendrick story. I mean, like, that's always a huge advantage of wrestling, is like, if you have a story to tell and an angle to further, that's a lot easier to do than just like, I want to win and advance to the next round.
Sure. I think one of the it's a funny thing that he does, but I weirdly think it ended up kind of detracting more than you would think. But Tozawa, when he's on the indies or when he's working, especially when he's working Gorilla, he's able to work very blue. He's able to use.
Yeah, that's true.
He's going to be on Raw, and I'll be at a PG program.
Right. And so I think when he really gets into the screaming and the crowd screams back and he's able to kind of turn it on them and work blue, I think that really gets people going. And so I think him having to be very PG with it might have been more...
But, like I said, like his third match, people were on board by that.
Sure,
I think it's just like you have to see Tozawa a couple times to understand what Tozawa is.
He's an anomaly.
And the thing is that, like, most people outside of a Full Sail, when they're going to see Tozawa, until now that he's in WWE, like they've seen a couple Tozawa matches online. They know like what's going on. This is like, we talked like the first round there was like every week there was like almost every week there was like a clunker match. Hoholun no Amdar. I mean,
yeah, that one sunk a little bit for me. I'll agree with that. But I will say, in response to people not getting Akira Tozawa until the third round, I think it was because of this match. This match, while Kendrick and Tony Nese told the overarching story of this being important in the tournament, Akira Tozawa and Jack Gallagher is a match that you can turn on at any time.
Sure.
It tells the story, and the story is done at the end of that match, and you get it. You understand.
Yeah.
And I think even on the losing end of this, I think this match was so much more a showcase for Gallagher.
100%.
Yeah.
The tie up and then the bum kick,
which I'm not gonna ever be upset about.
Not at all.
God, no,
and I mean, why? I mean, if it's
just a care. Right,
exactly.
Freaking out,
and it's the perfect opportunity. It's almost like becoming a formula. Like if it's a showcase match, that person is probably not advancing in the tournament.
Yeah, dang it.
And
learned it too late.
We're gonna talk about him later, but I've seen 3 of his matches in this tournament so far. I do not get No Amdar.
Really?
Like
I got him on the third one. We'll talk about that. I got him on the third one.
So, considering this was the end of several people, and everybody but Tony Nese and Hoholun have been announced for the Cruiserweight division, are you surprised that Nese or Hoholun are not on that list?
No.
I'm shocked that Nese is.
I think Nese is going to go to NXT if anything.
I'm not surprised, but
No?
I'm not surprised, but I'm not surprised, but I think that we'll see Nese in some capacity at some point. But it's like you start with 10 people in the Cruiserweight division, like that's certainly all the time that Raw has for them at this point. Like, you know, the SmackDown women's division is 6 women,
and the Raw women's division is 6 or 7, depending on who's suspended or not.
Depending on whether they remember Summer Rae exists.
Yes, whether or not Summer Rae exists, whether or not Foxy is dead or not. That was a terrible night for Alicia Fox. So, of this episode, who is your standout competitor?
Kendrick.
I'm going with Gallagher.
I gotta go with Gallagher as well.
I love Gallagher. I mean, like I think I made it clear in our first episode.
Sure.
Yes,
How
I
much I
all
meant to
did.
Gallagher, but just Kendrick's so good. Darkest timeline, Kendrick.
It is. It absolutely is.
Brian Dark. Let's move on to our matches from episode 7. That's just a thing that I'm doing now ever since Ultimate Luchadors.
I get it.
There you go.
Get it.
Lindsay Dorado versus Rich Swann, Drew Gulak versus Xavier Jr., Johnny Gargano versus TJ Perkins. Another full, amazing show with a couple of outcomes that we weren't exactly expecting.
Definitely.
A lot of people thought the hometown NXT lad of Johnny Gargano was going to take it all the way to at least the semifinals. No. And Rich Swann, to be perfectly honest, I love Rich Swann. Rich Swann is amazing, but I'm surprised that he beat Lindsay Dorado in this round.
I'm not.
I'm not.
I think we all picked him to advance, right? Or did you pick?
I think with my heart I picked Rich Swann, and with my brain I picked Lindsay Dorado.
I think if it was anyone else, it might have been a closer call. But I think up against Lindsay Dorado, I think that's as far as Lindsay was about to go. Incredibly talented, but I think they weren't gonna take him past this round, and so I mean, obviously. We know the most surprising result of the episode.
He was TJ Perkins.
I honestly, I have to say, from this episode, my favorite match was Dorado versus Swann.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that just might be because I'm so upset at the result of Gargano versus
I'd have to say my favorite match of this was Drew Gulak versus Zack Sabre Jr., though I did not... my favorite thing was the story that it told, was that Zack Sabre Jr. did not out-wrestle Drew Gulak.
Right.
He got lucky with that roll-up.
Exactly.
That was a total cover that Drew Gulak could not escape.
Right.
Yeah, this wasn't the match where he couldn't use his arms and had to do the leg submission?
No, this is the one.
Okay.
Wait, was it?
No, that wasn't that. I thought that was Noam Dar.
Yeah.
Him and Noam Dar was that one.
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
But that's what I liked about it, is it, despite Drew Gulak not being announced for the Cruiserweight division, that still tells me that story ain't over.
Sure. And actually, my favorite, I like that we all have different favorites. My favorite was Gargano and Perkins in this one. Only because...
Best match of the episode, or of the entire run, because we all like different matches.
Only because it established that continuity exists between NXT and the CWC. And that's something that I don't think
cool.
we...
And TakeOver.
Right, exactly, yeah. And I don't think that's something we necessarily took into account before. Obviously, you'll have guys appearing on one show or the other.
They planned it so well, considering how it was like taped and
God, it was so beautifully planned out, and it was such a shocking moment. Like, you thought it was 100% a foregone conclusion that Johnny Gargano was going to advance. And so when that story kept progressing and the leg kept being worked on and TJ Perkins locked in that knee bar, that was a straight up, like, get off your ass moment.
Well, so many people in the crowd did. They got up just like, oh, I can't believe it.
Doesn't TJ Perkins look like Paul Ryan in that picture?
That's
What a
really
call
fun. I
out.
100% see that.
I wish he came out to Rage Against the Machine.
That is hilarious.
Standout competitor in this episode.
I think Gulak.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And like you were saying with Noam Dar, the only thing that I saw in that match was Drew Gulak being better than Xavier Jr. That was the only thing that I saw.
My standout for the week is Swan.
I
love him. He's got so much personality and so much charisma.
I'm gonna say Swan as well. Yeah.
You just said Gulak.
No. I said something that I noticed. I did not
okay.
say that he was my favorite competitor.
Okay.
But now that you mentioned it, because I was surprised that he ended up taking the victory, I'll have to go with him because his performance was just stellar.
It's just, and Saber along with like Grand Metalik is a person that like every match he's showing a little bit more of who he is and what he can do. I still don't like the way his character lines up with whatever he's doing. Like, you know, like I said, I'm a Gallagher guy.
You're Galahad.
Galahad. I prefer
that a
the
thing?
watermelon.
It is now.
The watermelon smashing antics of Jack Gallagher.
Gallagher too.
Yes.
What a bull!
But at Battle of Los Angeles, I saw the best Zack Sabre Jr. match I've ever seen.
Really?
Against Tommy End in the first round. And Tommy End's probably going to be in NXT soon.
Tommy End's so good.
Maybe. We don't know.
But it's just like Sabre can be so good. And man, if he was a heel, like,
right.
it's just, yeah.
I mean,
It wasn't England's greatest son.
Yes.
I feel like
technical wizard.
I feel like the matches that we've seen of him, he is kind of more so, at least heel leaning, heel adjacent.
But I think the like you said, where you ended up liking Gulak a lot more, and you know, for you, he was the better wrestler. The CWC is doing a lot of that, of like, here's a bunch of people, here's who you might think you like, but yeah.
Right.
And
whether they're doing it intentionally or not.
Sure.
And I do have to say, I've seen Drew Gulak wrestle at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and he puts on a clinic, and he's been a favorite of mine for a while. So a little biased, I'll say, but this was a stellar week in wrestling and a stellar week at the CWC. That was the end of round 2. So out of the whole round, the entire round, what was your favorite match? And again,
Ibushi and Alexander.
Yeah, I've got to go with that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Like I said, it got the most talk, it got the most hype, it got the most people the most excited about it. Like, it changed people's lives. Like Cedric
it
Alexander,
did. It did.
like
right.
just such a coming out party for him, and really a turning point for a turning point for Ibushi, I think, in the tournament as well.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't think he's been pushed as much. At that point, he hadn't been pushed as much as he did in that match.
Right. I think people were expecting Ibushi to walk just straight through his first several matches.
And that was not the case.
Yeah.
MVP of the round. Is that also Cedric Alexander? It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, might as well.
Probably. It's a close one, but yeah, I'd say so.
Out of sheer entertainment, I gotta go Jack Gallagher. I keep going back to that performance.
I'm just so excited that he's going to be on Raw.
So happy. And if it's a different, well, I mean, no, because they were all eliminated. Who do you think has the most momentum moving into who had the most momentum moving into round 3? I'd say it'd be in between Swan and Perkins.
I think Perkins probably just by a hair, only because it's almost like the slingshot effect where nobody was expecting him to move past that match at all.
I don't think none of us picked Perkins.
No, not at all. And so I think writing that it probably gives him just a little bit more.
I don't even know how to answer that question.
All right, then
Because we're about to talk about the next
exactly.
round.
So let's move on to week 8, which had us see Akira Tozawa versus Grand Metalik and Brian Kendrick versus Kota Ibushi in the first round. Wow. what a couple of matches. This was the one where Brian Kendrick super stood out for me because this was it. Going up against the Golden Sun, how is Brian Kendrick going to get out of this one? And he tried. I loved locking the foot into the barricade.
Oh my God,
he
that was so
tried
good.
absolutely everything.
And
he was
makes
fighting for
sense.
his life.
It makes so much sense. Like, why aren't we seeing more attempted countouts in this tournament?
Yeah,
like
it's the easiest thing.
You could either,
quote unquote.
yeah, you could make the tournament pin or submit only, but if it's just a straight up, if you win, you advance.
Yeah.
Why aren't we seeing more people go for that?
Yeah.
Like that should be like when you're playing a video game and you throw the guy as far as you can and then wait until 7 and run back into
Run back into the ring. Oh, I'm out of stamina. Crap.
Yeah, I mean, Kendrick was just so damn good. And
Absolutely incredible.
And the match was so amazing, just like almost entirely because of what Kendrick was doing. Like, it's so like amazing. And the story they told about, you know, him doing the neck breaker on the turnbuckle and then like just trying for that bully choke. Like, such an awesome, like, you know, going for sliced bread. And
Right, exactly.
It would have been heel if they weren't trying to get us to root for him as an underdog.
Right. And I love that story, and I love the story of Daniel Bryan's history with him being layered on top of that.
Yeah, and the post show as well.
for sure.
My heart.
That was, yeah.
Ugh, getting a little choked up.
Yeah,
Did anybody
real dusty.
Did anybody expect Gran Metalik to win the match against Akira Tozawa? Because that was when we were like, oh yeah, Akira Tozawa's going on to the semifinals.
yeah, like I picked him to advance, but like by the time that match was over, the match was so good.
If I had seen that match on paper a few rounds ago, I would have thought 100% for sure Tozawa would be going on. Once this round came around and once you saw how much momentum Gran Metalik had going in, I think it kind of became clear that, okay, they're really backing this guy.
Yes, after that match with Tajiri. Like, this,
Right.
we were going to expect nothing short of a Baron Burner.
Yeah.
Like the Iron Giant after too many beverages, he had a Gran Metalik.
Bless you, Bill.
Yeah.
Oh,
Love you so
man.
much. So I think we can all agree Brian Kendrick was the standout competitor on this episode.
For sure.
Okay,
And favorite match was Kendrick Kota Ibushi.
Yeah.
Again, not to discount Akira Tozawa versus
Tozawa
Gran Metalik.
Metalik was so cool,
So
and
good.
so happy that the crowd finally got behind Tozawa and understood what he was all about.
And did anybody see the post-match interview?
No.
Where he talked about like what are your goals now that you're out of thing? He was like, I want to become best friends with Sasha Banks.
That rules.
It's so cool.
He's so great.
I do want to see the dynamic of Akira Tozawa and Apollo Crews show up on WWE
Sadly,
TV.
they're on different shows. but,
Are they?
yeah.
Damn.
Somebody in chat did say there's a rumor that if Vince really likes the cruiserweights on Raw, that SmackDown will get their own division and their own.
I
belt.
mean, it would make so much sense.
There's so many cruiserweights still floating around.
I mean,
Exactly. They could each
out of
have
32, 10 have spots.
Exactly. They could each have such a substantial division.
Excuse me. Out of 33, with all respects to Zumbi.
But
Obviously.
not just talking about those people, also talking about the people in NXT who inexplicably that we expected to be part of the Cruiserweight Classic that weren't. People like
Go on.
Cien Almas,
Yes.
Andrade
Andrade
Cien
Cien
Almas,
Almas,
sure.
people like Oni Lorcan, people,
Austin Aries.
yeah.
Right.
Well, not Austin Aries. Come on,
No, yeah,
former
he's too
world
good.
heavyweight champion.
Yeah, why not? Let's
I
move-
heard that SmackDown's going to get a cruiserweight just so that they have even amounts
Yeah.
of belts.
Yeah, that's well. I
Both
mean,
shows.
also Vince has to like it.
Yeah, if Vince thinks it works well, then
That's Jimbo in the booth.
that is Jim. That's literally Jimbo in the booth on Twitter.
That was the Jimbo Slick.
Nope, Jimbo in the booth on Twitter. He just changed it.
Oh.
I changed it again?
Yep.
What was it before the Jimbo Slick?
No, it's Jimbo 12360. Because of
For
our
a hot minute.
because of our new show, if you're a
X-Pac.
fan of Sean Waltman, we have a new podcast called Xbox 12360 featuring Jimbo in the booth and Mrs. Christy Olsen. No, I mean she's married, but anyway, Christy reports
Blowing
on
up her
Twitter.
spot.
Yeah, then so make sure to check it out. They've had 2 awesome episodes already.
Billy Gunn was on an episode.
Billy Gunn was on it. It's been a really funny.
Alan Tales.
It's been a really fun experience. So make sure to check it out. Xbox 12360 on iTunes, on YouTube. We got some great stuff coming up in the wrestling world, so make sure to check that out.
And go watch 1-2-3 Kid versus El Generico while you're at it from
Yeah.
Chikara.
Why
Because that
not?
match, now that I'm thinking of cruiserweights and tournaments and X-Pac, it all comes together. it makes me think of that match, 1-2-3 Kid, El Generico, just a couple years ago at the King of Trios. One of my absolute favorite matches.
Do yourself a favor.
Go find that.
Check it out. Let's move on to week 8. We had Noam Dar versus Xavier Jr. and Rich Swann versus TJ Perkins. Rich Swann versus TJ Perkins was a barn burner,
Right.
Almost to the point that
The barn burned down.
seriously, Ciampa and Gargano had at the end of round 1, but they didn't we weren't as familiar with that
we weren't
friendship.
as emotionally invested.
Yeah, we weren't as familiar with the friendship and how close they are until the match itself. So we didn't have a chance to really get anticipated, like it being the final match of the round. But Noam Dar versus Xavier Jr.
I was crazy about that match.
Yeah?
That's legitimately one of my favorite matches of the whole tournament thus
Very
far.
cool.
Absolutely. It was such... And to be fair, I don't know how much of it is because I didn't really see a lot out of Noam Dar's first few matches in the tournament. But I thought he played up his character so well, and it was just... such a, I mean, I feel like to say it's technically sound is redundant, obviously, but there was such good limb work in the match and such kind of realism on display. And seeing Xavier Jr., who's hailed as this wizard and this kind of master of technical wrestling, to see him put in a vulnerable state and to see him without the use of his arms and to see him work around that even then, I thought was incredible to see. I'm a little biased just because I'm such a huge kind of homer for World of Sport.
Okay.
But it's one of my favorite matches of the tournament.
Bill.
The match didn't do a lot for me, but I did love the ending. Like, it all came. I mean, as good matches do, it all came together at the end, and I think that's a brilliant way. That's a brilliant story to tell and a brilliant way to end the story that they told. But the match as a whole, I was just kind of like, whatever. And then the ending was like, all right, that's cool.
I only wish they had waited just
so jaded.
a second or two longer to ring the bell until after the headbutts.
Yeah.
But again, like even after watching this match, like he worked the arms, but like Noam Dar, like I just don't understand.
This one I did.
It's like I don't know a single thing that he does. Like I can't tell you anything.
He's
about
got the
this
champagne
guy.
super knee bar. That I popped for that.
I
one.
was so upset when I found out where his name comes from. I was so bummed out about it.
No.
Is that something that we can talk about on air? Or is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Do you want to talk about it on air?
I don't know if I love it or hate it.
Because this, champagne super knee bar, his whole like persona is based on how big a Oasis fan he is. He took Noel and Liam from Gallagher again.
So Noam.
The Gallagher and Gallagher 2 took Noel and Liam, and it's Noam.
I'm pretty sure I love that.
Friggin' Oasis.
I'm pretty sure I love
No,
that.
they mentioned it on commentary.
Yeah.
They
talked
mentioned that he was
about
an
it.
Oasis fan. But
Yeah, a huge Oasis fan.
I never once put together the name.
Much like Oasis, he's never spoken to his brother.
That just blew my friggin' mind.
But you know how like his signature taunt is like he bites his wrist?
Yeah.
That's why I call him Noam Chomsky.
God. Oh.
Who was?
I always thought he was checking his breath.
He's actually preparing the cyanide capsule should the worst happen.
I just really like Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
So I would have to say my favorite
He's
competitor.
a self-vampire.
My favorite. I think the standout competitor in this episode was Rich Swann.
Which Swan?
Rich Swann. That's Rich Swann.
Yeah, Rich Swan.
Working
yeah.
through a speech impediment.
I agree. Rich Swan.
For me, it was Noam Dar.
Yeah.
I
Because
think
it finally turned the corner for you.
exactly, and I think his strikes
Hey.
especially.
Don't look back in anger.
You son of his strikes, I think, were also a big part of that match being so fun to watch for me. Is because I think all of the strikes were so on point in that match that I remembered visibly like popping and cringing a lot during that match.
Yeah, I mean, as submission-y as it was, I just the physicality and the drive of TJ Perkins and Rich Swann trying to overcome every single bit and trying to get every time he held his knee or couldn't go for the
Right.
450 or anything.
Well, and to speak on Swann versus Perkins, also, I think it told such an awesome story because both of them to this point in the tournament had been portrayed as so kind of fun-loving and kind of carefree, and okay, one's moonwalking and one's dabbing and it's all fun, and then both of them turn this corner in the match where they're just literally slapping each other in the face.
Yes.
But then the second the tap out happens, there's that moment of kind of brotherhood and just making sure that like, okay, I won, now is he okay?
I'm done. I'm sorry. I love you.
Yeah. And I love that. I really, really dug that moment.
Yeah, and it gave you an equal feeling like with Gargano and Ciampa.
Exactly.
But because it was so accelerated and it was such a huge, like, it was literally the one lift hill of a roller coaster where you're like, dude, they're best friends. They're best friends. Oh, I won. I'm sorry. Like, instant.
Sure.
This is the episode that I definitely have to like just rewatch again because like admittedly I have biases against like there's only one competitor on this episode that I actually like as a wrestler.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I just have to watch that.
Pinoy boy?
And yeah.
Okay.
Pinoy.
Pinoy boy. Excuse me. So this took us to the end of round 3. Out of these 4 matches, Rich Swann, TJ Perkins, Noam Dar, Xavier Jr., Akira Tozawa, Grand Metalik, Brian Kendrick, Kota Ibushi. Favorite match?
Probably Kendrick and Ibushi.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. There were so many moments where I, against all better judgment, I was like, Kendrick's gonna win this. He's gonna beat Ibushi.
And that's a tribute to Ibushi as well.
Exactly.
Like, well,
And yeah, I think we really, the only reason we're not talking so much about Ibushi is because we all came into this knowing how phenomenal he was.
and how far he was going to go.
Exactly. And I think what really gets slept on is his ability to make his opponents look like $1 million.
But also, the thing about Ibushi is like he hasn't really been a standout in this tournament. He's just sort of been like this guy does crazy stuff, but he's been holding so much in reserve that we haven't seen from him, and it's just a situation of like, but the little guy hasn't done anything yet.
Right. Well, it's like I said before, I think the people that aren't advancing are getting the showcases, and I think the person going into this with the most name value and the most momentum is kind of getting shackled a little bit because of it. Yeah. I mean, hell, Andrade Almas is already doing his double moonsault on NXT.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like, we're kind of robbed of seeing that for the first time in the CWC.
That's a good point. And MVP of the round. Out of those
Kendrick.
Amazing competitors.
Yeah, it's got to be Kendrick.
Yeah, I think Kendrick told the most complete story, and the fact that we saw it end after all of the rounds.
Yeah.
Sadly.
And is there anybody? No, everybody here is where I want them to be.
And
so
that's analysis you can bet on, Mark.
Thanks, Bill. Before we get to our predictions for the semifinals, let's talk about the bonus matches that they released digitally online. If you haven't seen these, go to WWE's YouTube page or WWE.com. We're going to talk about them in length. They're still worth watching, even though we're going to spoil who wins or loses. But let's take a look at these matches. We had Cedric Alexander versus Oni Lorcan, they represented from NXT. He didn't get a flag or anything, so I put him on the NXT background.
I'm cracking up about this graphic because it's like
he's from Golden Scotland.
I was gonna say like everyone from America, Lindsay Dorado from Puerto Rico, and representing Dark Scotland.
It's Oni Lorcan.
From the deepest black metal of Dark Scotland comes Oni Lorcan.
Darkest timeline Scotland. It's just the Scottish flag with the goatee.
A pod rose from the Mariana Trench and floated into Dark Scotland, and it was Oni Lorcan. And then we also had
Mermaider.
I was just gonna say we're getting a lot of depth clocking in this.
And then a tag match: Lindsay Dorado and Kenneth Johnson versus Tony Nese and Drew Gulak. We get to see a second appearance from Kenneth Johnson, who was out in the first round. Really, the only person who hasn't had a chance to really show himself again. Which of these 2 matches did you like more, gentlemen?
Cedric Alexander versus Oni Lorcan.
Right. Yeah. That one, and I loved it because once again, it was such a showcase for Oni Lorcan in this.
But I literally did not know about these bonus matches until you texted us today. Like, have you guys seen the bonus matches? What? Well, no.
Right.
But like, it's almost like inexplicable that one, Oni Lorcan wasn't in the tournament, and 2, that he hasn't been on NXT for so long because he's been gone back to his roots.
He's going back to his roots, Bill.
And then they put him in this in the bonus match. And 3, this Oni Lorcan match is like so much more than we've ever seen from him on NXT, and it's a digital exclusive.
Yeah,
like It doesn't make any sense, but I'm glad it exists and that we can watch it because it's amazing.
The thing that jumped out at me so much about this match is that it was such a beautifully told story in that the different specific things that Oney Lorcan kept going for were being kept bulletproof. Oh, 3 times within, I think, as many minutes, he went for a chop and Cedric Alexander blocked it because, in theory, Cedric Alexander knows if he chops you, it's going to put you on your ass. And that's exactly what happened when he finally connected.
Yeah.
The same exact thing with the half and half suplex. He kept going for it, and Cedric Alexander kept blocking it because he knew, I need to avoid this. And he finally hits it. And then he finally hits an avalanche version of it.
Well, not all the way, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. He doesn't hit it. Yeah, that's right.
And I do agree. This is the most we've seen of Oney Lorcan, but I think it also showed everybody that he is dangerous.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cedric Alexander is the darling child of the Cruiserweight
baby
Classic,
boy.
the precious baby boy of the CWC, going up against this guy. If Cedric thinks he's dangerous, we all have to think that he's dangerous. I think this was a great display, and I agree. Why is it digital only? Why don't we get a bonus episode when we get episode 9.5 on the network?
Maybe they'll include these in the finale.
I don't think so. We got a lot in the finale.
Even just from the moment of that prolonged shot of him doing his pose at the very beginning of the match, he kept it for so long and in such an intense fashion that I think weirdly that said a lot about his character.
Did you guys both watched the Cruiserweight parade, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that Tommaso Ciampa did. He held up the one finger and just stared at mad dogged the camera forever.
Right.
The Facebook Live parade, Cruiserweight parade.
I forgot about that.
Macy's can
Put on your finest Easter hats. It's time to watch the parade.
Daniel, where's your hat?
Dick's out for Harambe.
Damn it. And that's our one. But also, not to be a slouch as well. I think the tag match, Lindsay
Yeah,
Dorado, Kenneth
tag
Johnson,
match is totally good.
very good.
100%.
And I think 100% Kenneth Johnson redeemed himself. A lot of people said that he didn't have as strong of a showing as anybody could have wanted in the first round. And I think this was a match that could have shown everybody, oh, that's why he was in this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a much better showing. I do fear that he was a little bit overshadowed by everyone else.
Agreed.
Well, the high point of that match for me was him getting single arm power bombed onto the outside on
Good lord.
So it's because I mean, yeah, it's cool that he got another chance, but because he did so little in the match, and because that's probably the big moment that people are going to remember, it's sort of like, oh yeah, he's in there because he's 155 pounds.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
people can lift him up.
And
he's
just-
a big dude that people can carry.
And but
Who here's light as hell? You get in there.
not to understate the strength of Tony
Right.
Nese.
Oh, no.
Because
I couldn't do that.
That was literally one armed. Like we see the one arm powerbomb from the schoolboy position a lot,
But never like this.
never with legitimately
one
one
arm,
arm.
yeah.
Not like this.
Not like this. But yeah, absolutely
He's the
incredible.
captain now.
And I love that that's really funny. I do love that Drew Gulak he's almost being positioned as like this Bob Backlund type, where he's such an old school grapple blank, and he's so intense and so passionate that it almost is like they're portraying it as that's all that fills his brain.
Did we miss a week? Because that last slide said episode 8.
That was a bonus.
No, the last.
I may have.
Well, was that 9?
That was 9.
Okay.
That was episode 9.
I'm losing my. It's very late when we're taping this. I'm extremely tired. I know I'll probably look high on the.
You look great, Bill.
Thanks.
You look great.
Oh, your hand's so warm.
Yeah, well, it's been on tea. So let's talk about the finale, the grand finale, the 2-hour finale that's going to be happening this Wednesday on the WWE Network.
Finale.
The grand finale.
The grand finale.
I love that announcer. So the semifinal matches that we know about are going to be Xavier Jr. versus Grand Metalik and TJ Perkins versus Kota Ibushi. Wow. And the winners of both of those, of course, going on to the finals for the CWC Championship Trophy. We also found out on NXT this past week that we're going to see a tag team contest with Gargano and Ciampa versus unknown opponents.
Ooh.
We don't know yet, but
It's the headbangers.
I would legitimately be really excited.
that would
for
be
that.
great if it was.
I would be both excited and extremely disappointed.
Is Chuck Palumbo still around? I hope it's Billy and Chuck.
Yeah, but it's motorcycle Chuck Palumbo.
One of those is a problem.
It's a motorcycle Chuck Palumbo.
That's cool.
So
Well, isn't that just Cliff Compton?
Basically.
Tony Nese has been in 2 tag team matches post CWC matchups. Maybe we'll see him in it again. But is there a combination of grapplers that you want to see back versus Ciampa and Gargano?
I'd like to see Gallagher again, obviously.
Gallagher and Tozawa as a tag team now?
So good.
I would be pretty crazy about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we might see the Bollywood Boys back. They are a
That's
tag
actually
team.
perfect.
That's actually a really, really good call.
That's probably the best idea. Why
I
don't
would
we
like
put
to see them because I didn't think they did that good in singles at all.
And I think
Well, they're a tag team.
I think you're right.
That's why. I mean, like neither. Like I thought, oh well, maybe this guy he was okay, but his partner will be really good. And then both of their singles matches, I was like, you guys really.
There was never an episode of G.I. Joe where like the Joes turn a corner and they're like, oh no, it's Zaymot.
What a pull!
But just Zay.
Yeah. Look out! Look out! He's coming at us from one side. It's Zaymot, everybody.
Amazing.
Zaymot over here.
So which of the
Punch him! Somewhere Tomax is going to be bummed.
Which one of the brothers is so mad?
What?
Which one of the Bollywood boys is so mad?
Gerv. I don't know.
You're perfect. I agree. So let us know who you think Gargano and
nailed
Ciampa are going to
Just like
face in the
saying,
comments below.
Gerv.
It is really satisfying.
Gerv. It's like the next Uber or whatever. Hey, you guys want to call a Gerv?
But it's GYRV.
Yeah.
It's Gerv is Uber in India.
It's racist.
How is that
Let's go ahead and talk about our predictions for
That's
the.
racist. Anyway, so we've got our semifinals. Zack Sabre and a very gross and disgusting misspelling by whoever made our graphics.
Zach.
It was
Zach Saber.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we were gonna point it out.
No, yeah.
No, I wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't put it.
No, that's me. That's my bad.
I've literally been thinking about it the
Well,
last
I'm
Is
worried.
that wrong?
Man, if Zack Sabre comes into this match with just like rubber arms, like he can't even use them at all.
Yeah.
Like if he has to like weekend at Bernie's his way through the match, like
just kick.
that'd be so
Just
good.
kicks.
I would like that a lot.
But talking about the momentum with TJ and Grand Metalik makes me think that we might see a completely different finals than what we were expecting.
Really?
If are we getting predictions?
We're
yet?
going into
Okay.
predictions. We're not hitting the music. Though.
I'm thinking we're gonna see a finals of Metalik and Ibushi.
I'm thinking Metalik and Perkins.
Interesting.
Because
I think a lot of people are thinking Metalik and Perkins at this point.
I think now that we don't know if Sabre and Ibushi are going to be in the Cruiserweight division, why have somebody who's not going to be on the show every week win the entire show? If the greatest Cruiserweight in the world isn't on Raw, how great are all of the other people?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And it's disappointing, but at the same time, you can see Zack Sabre and Kota Ibushi anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Well, of the combinations, I think I'd most like to see Metalik and Ibushi be the finals. All I know is that I'm gonna be so bummed out if TJ Perkins wins the whole thing.
I think, God, I'm still against my better judgment. I'm gonna hold on to Sabre versus Ibushi
Okay.
for the finals.
That's
only because my only rationale is that they might be closer to signing than we've heard.
Yeah.
And if so, it would make sense to hold off on promoting them on the bumpers on Raw until after they have all of this goodwill generated.
My big prediction is I think Metalik is going to win one side of the bracket. I think Metalik's going to win the whole thing. That's my prediction.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with that too.
Okay.
I don't think TJ is going to win the whole thing, but I think if they set up the first storyline for the Cruiserweight division, and maybe Metalik wins the tournament and they don't award the belt, but Perkins wins the belt,
Right.
and then they have that to go after.
What if like we go through this whole 10 weeks and then like the first like next week on Raw they're like, all right, it's a 10-man over the top battle royal to win the belt.
To win the belt, right.
Hopefully none of these competitors go to the top rope ever.
I do like
or springboard or anything that they do.
I do like the idea.
He's the master of the rope.
And he goes off.
And
and
he's
Metalik's out in the first.
My Michael Cole impression is spot on.
Pretty
You,
solid.
you nailed it.
Thought you were going for.
But I think obviously I'm really
He's the
intrigued
master of the ropes.
by the idea of a program between the trophy winner and the belt winner.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think that would be very fun.
Hopefully, whoever wins the tournament will not have to carry that trophy around everywhere, like the Andre the Giant.
It just
memorial.
always happens to be at ringside.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Dude, I haven't seen anybody physically hold that. So and it was made by Orange County Choppers. It's probably heavy as hell.
just-
Oh yeah, no.
It's just solid
Literally
steel.
Probably
unliftable.
is also a motorcycle.
Yes,
And just ride it around.
it's a GoBot.
Well, like you probably lay it down and then the globe spins, and it's
Yeah.
like Kaneda's bike and Akira.
It's a hipster unicycle.
Yeah. Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah.
That
How about
I
that?
feel like that would be the name of Jack Gallagher's finisher.
Hipster
Hipster
unicycle.
unicycle.
Yeah.
That's why the name of Jack Gallagher's band.
So twee, painfully twee.
They sound exactly like Mumford and Sons.
But with a little bit more of a British accent instead? Or exactly?
Yeah.
All right, fine, that's fair.
you know.
So we saw something that I brought up last time that everybody disagreed with me on was whether or not the time limits were going to be increased. And we saw this entire last
did.
couple of rounds, it got increased to 30 minutes. Does anybody think that we're going to that's going to play a bigger role in the semifinals and the finals?
I think the finals will probably have an hour time limit. I don't think it's going to come into play at all.
I
but-
think maybe one of the semifinal matches might bump up like right up against the time limit. Maybe.
I would like for that because they've really
but
they've
I
done
doubt
everything
that
but
'cause-
a count out.
But
because on the finals they have to wrestle 2 matches.
Right. Yeah.
But that could make the person who fights from below even more of an underdog story if they win.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that can happen. Did your favorite / pick to win make it to the semifinals?
No.
Who was that?
My favorites are Kendrick and Tozawa, probably.
and Gallagher.
And Gallagher, obviously.
Right.
Morning Utile Jr. Thoughts, no prayers. But yeah, I mean, I expected Tozawa to make it further,
Yeah.
and I expected, we thought that it was gonna be like Saber.
Indie event against Cody Rhodes, which is a hell of a way to go out on the indie circuit, quote unquote indie circuit.
Yeah, Gargano went out last night.
Yep. And you mentioned something previously that you wanted to talk about near the news and the predictions.
Oh, that was just about SmackDown potentially. Yeah.
All right, cool. Glad we were on the same page for that. Gentlemen, this has been a whole lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be back on Thursday at 8 p.m. to talk about the
earlier.
finale.
Looking even sharper.
I'm going to cut somebody with my finger. That's how sharp I'm going to be. That was a dumb joke. So, if you want more
Lady
dumb jokes like
Deathstrike?
if you want more, because that's the sound she makes.
You know.
If you want more of this terrible humor,
I think that just the reality of the CWC was different than whatever we had in our mind.
okay.
Yeah, I think we know obviously, and I think the sheer number of match of the year contenders that we've gotten so far is kind of
Yeah,
worth.
that's great.
I
That's
think
been great.
did people expect this to be? Do you think more of the WWE style as opposed to letting these guys be themselves?
I think people probably just expected more PWG.
I think everyone,
like just everything balls to the wall the whole time.
people that might have not known as
This whole tournament was extremely WWE.
right. I think, and I think you're absolutely right. I think people that might have not known as much might have expected this is going to be every match is getting 5. This is awesome chance.
And I don't think that anyone would have ever guessed oh yeah, Cedric Alexander versus Kota Ibushi. That's gonna be the match that everyone talks about.
Right.
That's going to be the match of the tournament.
Right.
Exactly on paper.
And that was
yeah.
round 2. You know,
Right.
and not to discredit any of the other matches that have occurred that have been remarkable because I would say 85-90% of the matches have been stellar and top 100 match of the year, some top 20, some top 10, some top 5.
Sure.
It's been a fun ride regardless. Whether we're going to see more next year, I suppose we'll find out at the finale or in spring of next year. We'll see how the Cruiserweights do on Raw. But we will talk more about that Thursday at 8 p.m. Why don't you join us until we meet again? Gentlemen, where can the folks yell at you on Twitter?
Well, y'all can converse with me gently and politely on all forms of social media at Ty Matthews PMA. You can find me on various other after shows, including Monday Night Raw, obviously on Mondays. You can catch me for the American Ninja Warrior finale this coming Wednesday at 9 p.m. rather. Thursday, we will obviously be here for the semifinals and the finals at 8. And immediately after, you can catch us. You can catch myself and Bill Hanstock joining us on the Lucha Underground After Show this Thursday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. You can also find Jimbo in the booth, who is in the booth. And you can find Rachel Evans, the brand new co-host of the Lucha Underground After Show.
Not in the booth.
Not in the booth. She's somewhere else. But she will be here in the studio. And so yeah,
Somewhere else.
Check me on all of those forms of media. Yeah. Yes, and of course watch Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Saturdays 4 p.m. Tough TV, Fight TV, KDOC, U2 America, Patreon. There's no reason for you not to watch it.
Yeah. There's so many to choose from.
Yeah.
I'm Bill. See you next week.
Sundown Motel on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter at Sundown Motel. I'm very tired.
Uprocks.
You can check out uprocks.com/wrestling, withspandex.com, uprocks.com/sports. Check out. That's it.
There you go.
Check out Mark.
I'm the internet's Mark B. Donica. You can
out
find me on
Mark.
Twitter at Check Me Out. You can
Mark.
check me out at Mark B. Donica on Twitter. We've been adding a whole bunch of plussing to all of our wrestling programs. That's okay, Ty.
Plussing.
Yeah, we've been plussing up a lot of our wrestling programs. We debuted a new segment on Raw tonight, which was a lot of fun. Just go watch it on Twitter. It's fun. It will haunt your dreams. And we had a new segment on NXT, and we still got a solid segment on SmackDown. Check them out. I don't want to ruin them in case you don't know what they are. So go watch them. Also, make sure to follow our Predictions Championship Twitter, which is ABTV PPV Champ. So you can get a chance to be our champion of predictions. Bill retired the championship as a host, and now all of our fans have a chance to win that championship.
You're welcome, fans.
He beat me for it.
He did it. Yeah. That monster. And we're actually working on physical prizes to be giving out for that honor, so you might as well get on that train while the train is moving. You know, you can still get on it. It's not away from the station.
You can come on, ride the train, and ride it.
That's right.
Snowpiercer, this bad boy.
You're my butterfly, sugar baby. So make sure to follow me on Twitter at Mark B. Donica for a whole bunch of updates. We got a lot of fun stuff happening here. Let all of us know about your CWC comments down below on YouTube and on iTunes. Follow all of us here at AfterBuzz TV. But until Thursday, for these wonderful gentlemen and my subpartners, we will see you on the CWC on Thursday.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.